Hi everyone, I just got done reading your research papers. I thought they overall were really good. This week is going to be a little bit easier for you than last week. There's just a short chapter to read out of Bonnie Thurston's book, and there's not even a PowerPoint to go with it. So take some notes as you're reading, but again, it's pretty short. I do want to talk to you about some things in regard to the Virgin Mary, and it wouldn't hurt for you to take some notes on this. I did post a PowerPoint either last week or this week that also covers some information about her. About the Virgin Mary, we teach three specific things. First of all, we teach that she was forever a virgin. We call this her perpetual virginity. And basically what this means is we believe as a Catholic Church that Mary was a virgin when she conceived Jesus, which all other Christian denominations accept, but we also teach that she remained a virgin her whole life. Some of the Protestant churches don't agree with that. They think she went on to have a fruitful marriage with Joseph. And the Bible does mention brothers and sisters of Jesus. As a Catholic Church, we would explain the mentionings of that by three different ways. One would be that sometimes when someone is really close to you, you might consider them a brother or sister. Second is in the Greek language, the same word was basically used for brother and cousin. And then the third explanation would be that the Proto-Evangelium of James, which is a outside piece of writing, it's not in the Bible, but we consider it a credible source. It tells the whole story about Mary. And in that it says that Joseph was quite old when they got married, that he was really more like a guardian to her. And so it's possible that he had children in a previous marriage that would be considered his stepbrothers and stepsisters. The next thing that we teach is that what we call the Immaculate Conception. And this is basically saying that Mary, when she was conceived in her mother Anna's womb, was conceived without sin, that she was the only human who was born without sin. Finally, the third major teaching about Mary is called the Assumption. And this teaching says that after Mary had a natural death, that she was assumed body and soul into heaven. And so that makes her unique because, of course, everyone else, when we die, our souls go to heaven, but our bodies at this point don't. Also, there are lots of feast days when it comes to the Virgin Mary that are listed in the PowerPoint slide. A lot of those feast days are connected with the apparitions of Mary. Lots of people did papers about the apparitions of Mary, and I'm not going to go into detail about every one of them. But I will tell you some of the common denominators between the apparitions. So one thing in particular is that Mary often appeared in places where there was suffering. Either there was poverty or there was some sort of war going on, but that was usually a response to people's crying out for help. Second of all, more often than not, she appeared to children or people who were more innocent, more trusting. But most of the time it was children. And then she also had similar messages when she appeared, which included praying the rosary more often, going to Mass more, turning away from communism. That was one of the messages. Often when she appeared too, she predicted future wars or violent attacks. So, for example, she predicted World War II. She predicted the Rwandan Holocaust. She predicted the assassination attempt on John Paul II. All of those happened in the different apparitions. An outcome from the apparitions often are churches being built in the places where she appeared, and also miracles associated with those places or things that are part of those places, like a brook or a body of water. Anyway, that's just some of the stuff that people uncovered about the Virgin Mary. Many of the papers were about the Rosary. The Rosary is one of the devotions that we have to the Virgin Mary. The Rosary was, in its earliest form, probably a series of beads that people would have prayed on that were used by mostly illiterate people. A lot of times there were 150 of the beads or notches on a rope, and then they used these to count how many prayers they were saying. Sorry, just a second. Jake, quiet. That's my son, sorry, playing on the Wii. Anyway, they would pray on these, and it would remind them how many times they said a certain prayer. Because they were illiterate, they just said some sort of short mantra. And then when they're playing the mantra or saying the mantra, they would say that a certain number of times, but usually it was 150 because that's how many psalms there were. And we know Jesus, when he prayed with the psalms. So eventually, the rosary was given to, by most accounts, St. Dominic in an apparition, told to use those beads, but to pray on them. And so the current form of the rosary today has 50 Hail Marys, and there are three, or for a long time, there were three different mysteries to the rosary: the glorious, the suffering, and the sorrowful. And those, if you prayed all three mysteries in 1 week, then you would say 150 Hail Marys, which would be like saying the 150 Psalms. Anyway, it's evolved since that time, and more prayers have been added to it. But basically, when Catholics pray the rosary, they're praying to Mary as an intercessor. We do not worship Mary, we worship God, but we believe that Mary has this great power to go to God with our prayers, and therefore she's a great intercessor, which is like a middle person. Also, in the rosary, we're praying the Our Father, the Glory Be, and those are both prayers to God. So we are always worshiping God. We just have a special devotion to Mary because we think she's a powerful intercessor. One other thing before I go, I want to remind you of is next week you have a test. This is 40 questions rather than 20. You have double the amount of time to answer them, and the questions will be about everything you've read so far. So the entire Bonnie Thurston book and the Old Testament women, including the information I just gave you about Mary on this video. Anyway, that's next week, and then after that you have spring break. So I hope that you can take the extra time this week and kind of prepare yourself for the test next week. Anyway, have a great week. I'll talk to you again next week.